What's the story behind the Boston Massacre? When was it? Who started it? What did it mean for the American Revolution? Why does the word massacre look like it should be pronounced massacre? All that and more on this episode of History's News. Welcome back to History's News, where we bring you the facts straight from the past. I'm your host, Bob, and today we uncover the mysteries of the Boston Massacre. To help us do that, we have a reporter live on the scene in John Johnson. John, what can you tell us about what's happening there?
Yeah, Bob, I am here outside of the Customs House, and let me just tell you that this city is absolutely buzzing, because last night on March 5th, 1770, a deadly clash took place between British soldiers and the citizens of this city.
A deadly clash, you say? Wow. But John, I think you're forgetting one important thing for our viewers. Where are you?
Well, I'm in Boston, Bob. It's the Boston Massacre.
Okay. All right. Now that makes sense. Okay, well, what can you tell us? How did this massacre get started?
Well, to understand what's really going on here, Bob, we have to take a step back for a second. You see, right now it's 1770, and there is a ton of tension between Parliament, the British government, and the colonists. So, in order to keep the peace and enforce the unfair taxes, the British government sent over 2,000 soldiers to be stationed here in Boston. Now, the colonists that live in the city see those soldiers as a symbol of British power and oppression. So, there has been a ton of fighting, name-calling, protesting, and generally just really bad blood between the soldiers and the colonists for a while.
John, I'm just going to take a guess here, but this sounds like where Taylor Swift might have got the idea for the song. Bad blood, huh?
No, Bob, it is not. But, honestly, I really didn't think you were a Swiftie.
I'm really not, there, John. The wife, Susie, is the president of the fan club. So, sometimes when in the car, no matter. So there's tension between the two sides. So what? How did this end in a massacre?
A group of colonists started once again protesting outside of the Customs House, which holds all of the king's money. Now, there was only one soldier on duty at the time, a Private Hugh White. As the crowd grew in size and aggression, Private White became a little scared, and he actually struck one of the colonists with his bayonet.
John, correct me if I'm wrong, but bayonet, that's the long pointy thing at the end of the gun, right?
Yeah, Bob, it's basically a giant knife. So after this happened, the colonists got angry and started throwing snowballs, ice, and rocks at Private Hugh White. White realized the situation was getting out of hand and called for backup.
I guess you could say the British soldiers knew the colonists were trouble when they walked in. Excuse me. So what happened next?
Are you sure it's actually not you who's president of the fan club, Bob? Just saying. But at some point during the riot, bells sounded, which usually means a fire. This caused more colonists to exit their homes and actually join the riot.
John, maybe it was the fire in their hearts.
Yeah, maybe, Bob. But, pretty soon, British Captain Thomas Preston heard the call for backup and arrived on the scene with more soldiers. The colonists continued throwing things and screaming at the British soldiers, and some eyewitnesses even say that they were threatening them with clubs.
Clubs, eh? Okay, well, what kind of clubs are we talking about here, John? Are we thinking like a sand wedge or a 9-iron?
No, Bob, these are not golf clubs. They are wooden clubs which were used for making rope. Now, eyewitnesses say that at some point, a colonist threw a club at a British soldier and knocked him down. Nobody knows who, but somebody on the British side yelled, "Fire!" And at that point, all the British soldiers fired into the crowd.
Holy potatoes there, John. They fired into the crowd?
Yeah, Bob, it's a little bit unclear whether or not that first shot was accidental or on purpose. But either way, after the first shot was fired, all the British soldiers fired into the crowd, killing 5 people and wounding many others. The first person to fall was Crispus Attucks, who is considered the first casualty of the American Revolution.
Well, what happened to the soldiers there, John? naturally they were thrown in prison for the rest of their lives, or maybe even the death penalty. I mean, this is a major crime against civilians.
All of the British soldiers involved were put on a long 7-month trial. They all claimed that they acted in self-defense. But at the end of that 7-month trial, only 2 members of the British soldiers who fired into the crowd were found guilty. And their penalty was extremely light. They were only convicted of manslaughter and only received a small brandishing or burn on their thumbs.
A small burn on your thumb? That's like a cool tattoo. I mean, they must have had a really good lawyer.
Well, it's funny that you would say that, Bob, because the British were actually defended in court by founding father John Adams. Now, Adams thought that every person deserved a fair trial no matter what crime they committed. He received a ton of hate for this during his time, but he did it because he thought that it was the right thing to do.
Oh, John Adams, yeah, I definitely know who that is. Yeah, but John, I'm getting all kinds of fired up about this, surely the British soldiers couldn't have just gotten away with it.
Well, Bob, they kind of did get away with it, which is what makes it such an important event in American history. Now, news of the Boston Massacre spread extremely quickly and united people in their hatred of their British rulers. So while it was ultimately an extremely sad event, it brought a lot of people together in their search for independence.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And news spread fast there, John, but how did people hear about it so quickly? I mean, was it live streamed or on the evening news, perhaps?
No, Bob, once again, it is 1770. None of that stuff exists.
Well, John, I've never been good with technology. I'm still trying to figure out how to open one of those, what do you call them? PDFs?
You mean a PDF?
John, you could keep your tech voodoo to yourself, all right? Just tell me, how did the news of the massacre spread?
Well, Bob, after the event, there was a lot of propaganda on both sides, with each side blaming each other for causing the event. Now, 2 famous sons of liberty, John Hancock and Samuel Adams, used the event to gain support for independence. Paul Revere also created a famous piece of artwork showing the brutality of the soldiers towards the colonists. All in all, the Boston Massacre is seen as a turning point as the colonists move toward an eventual revolution.
Wow, John, fantastic reporting once again. What an amazing event in American history. Now, John, we're just about out of time. Is there anything else you want to add to the report?
Yeah, Bob, thanks for this. I mean, this is not related to the report, but I just want to say happy birthday to my mom. Mom, you're amazing.
Well, that's all the time we have for tonight, everybody. Thank you for joining us again on this episode of History's News. We'll see you next time. Good night.